I won $50 million in the Mega Millions lottery. In a rush, I grabbed my 3-year-old son and raced to the office to deliver the news to my husband. But as I reached the door, I heard his intimate voices, his and his mistress's. All I could do was smile, an action that would lead them straight to their ruin. My name is Kemet Jones, and I'm 32 years old. If anyone had asked me what my life was like before that day, I would have said it was mundane to the point of being boring. My husband, Solani Jones, was the director of a small construction firm. He was my first love, the only man I had ever been with. We had been married for 5 years and had a 3-year-old son, Jabari, who was my sunshine, my whole world. Since Jabari was born, I had quit my job to dedicate myself full-time to caring for him, managing the house, and building our little nest. Solani handled the financial side. He left early and came home late. Even on weekends, he was busy with clients and closing deals. I felt sorry for my husband for working so hard and never complained, telling myself I needed to be his unconditional support. Sometimes Solani would get irritated from the pressure, but I stayed silent and let it go. I figured every couple had their ups and downs. As long as they loved each other and cared about the family, everything would be fine. Our savings were practically non-existent because Solani claimed the company was new and all profits had to be reinvested. I trusted him without question. That day, a Tuesday, the sun was shining softly over Atlanta, Georgia. As usual, after feeding my son breakfast, I started tidying the house. Jabari was in the living room playing with his Duplo blocks. While cleaning, I spotted the Mega Millions ticket I had hastily bought the day before, stuck to my shopping list notepad. I had bought the ticket when I went to the Kroger grocery store. It was pouring rain, and I ducked into a small neighborhood liquor store for shelter. The lady selling lottery tickets was elderly, and she pitifully asked me to buy a ticket for good luck. I had never believed in these games of chance, but I felt bad for the woman, so I bought a quick pick ticket, randomly choosing some numbers connected to our family: my birthday, Zolani's, Jabari's, and our wedding anniversary. Now, looking at it, I chuckled. It was probably trash, but as if by fate, I pulled out my phone and went to the official state lottery website to check it as a joke. The results of the previous night's drawing appeared. I started mumbling the numbers: 5, 12, 23. My heart skipped a beat. The ticket in my hand also had 5, 12, and 23. Trembling, I kept checking: 34, 45, and the mega ball, 5. My God. I had matched all 5 numbers and the mega ball. $50 million. 50 million. I tried to count the zeros in my head. My hands were shaking so hard, I dropped my phone. I sat on the cold floor, my head spinning. I had actually won the lottery. The first feeling wasn't joy, but a shock that made me nauseous. I took a deep breath, and suddenly a frantic euphoria started rising from my chest. I began to sob convulsively. My God, what unbelievable luck. I was rich. My son would have a brilliant future. I would buy the most beautiful home, enroll him in the best international school, and Solani, my husband, wouldn't need to work so hard. The burden of the company, the debts, everything would be resolved. He wouldn't come home irritated anymore. We would be happy. I imagined Zolani's face when he heard the news. He would hug me tight, overcome with joy. My love for him, my years of sacrifice, could finally help him realize his great dream. I couldn't wait another second. I had to tell him right away. I grabbed my purse, carefully putting the ticket in the interior zippered pocket. I scooped up Jabari, who looked at his mother confused. "Jabari, Mommy's sweetie, let's go see Daddy. Mommy has a huge surprise for him." The boy laughed and hugged my neck. I ran out the door and hailed an Uber. My heart pounded uncontrollably in my chest. I felt like the whole world was smiling at me. I, an ordinary stay-at-home mom, was now the owner of $50 million. My life, my family's life, a glorious new chapter was beginning right now. I squeezed Jabari's little hand and whispered, "Jabari, our life has changed, my son." The car stopped in front of the small office building in the Midtown area where Solani's firm was based. It was his dream, my pride. I had gone everywhere with him to sort out the paperwork. I had stayed up late helping him calculate the initial contracts. I carried Jabari in my arms, my heart racing, and walked inside. The receptionist, a young woman who knew me, smiled and greeted me. "Good morning, Kemet. Are you here to see Mr. Jones?" I nodded, trying to keep my voice calm but unable to hide my excitement. "Yes, I have some fantastic news for him." "He's in his office. Does he have a visitor?" The girl hesitated. It looks like it, but I haven't seen anyone go in. Should I let him know?" "No, don't bother," I said, waving my hand and smiling brightly. "I want to surprise him. Just keep working." I didn't want anyone to interrupt this special moment for the two of us. I wanted to see Zalani's face with my own eyes when I told him we had $50 million. I tiptoed down the hallway toward his executive office. The closer I got, the faster my heart beat. I was about to see the man of my life, the person I loved unconditionally, and about to give him a gift he could never imagine. His office door was slightly ajar. Just as I was about to raise my hand to knock, I heard a sound from inside that chilled my blood. It was a stifled laugh, a seductive and sweet giggle. "Oh, come on, baby. Did you really mean that?" That voice sounded familiar. It wasn't the voice of a business partner or a client. I stopped dead, and a bad feeling flooded my mind. Jabari in my arms made a small sound. I quickly covered his mouth with my hand and shushed him. And then I heard Zalani's voice, the voice I knew with every breath, but which now sounded strangely soft and persuasive. "Why are you in such a rush, my love? Let me straighten things out with that country bumpkin I have at home. Once that's sorted, I'm filing for divorce immediately." My heart shattered. Country bumpkin. He was talking about me. Divorce. I backed up a step, trembling, and hid in the corner of the wall, out of their line of sight. Jabari, sensing my tension, stayed quiet, burying his head in my chest. The woman's voice sounded again, and this time I recognized her. It was Zahara, the girl Zalani had introduced to me as his sister's friend, who sometimes came over for dinner. A young woman, pretty, and a good conversationalist. I'd even liked her. "And your plan? Do you think it'll work? I heard your wife has some savings." Zalani laughed disdainfully, a laugh I had never heard from him before. "She doesn't understand anything about life. She lives locked up at home. She believes everything I tell her. I already checked on those savings. She told me she spent it all on a life insurance policy for Jabari. Brilliant. She cut off her own escape route." I heard the sound of clothes being taken off, the noise of loud kisses, and then obscene sounds, low moans that, however naive I was, I understood the meaning of. I froze on the spot. The $50 million lottery ticket in my pocket suddenly burned like a hot coal. Oh my God. The joy of just minutes ago vanished, leaving only a bitter, disgusting truth. My husband, the man I blindly trusted, was cheating on me right there in his office. And it wasn't just betrayal. They had a plan to get rid of me. I bit my lips so hard it bled, trying to hold back the sob rising in my throat. I couldn't believe it. The man I shared a bed with, the father of my child, called me a country bumpkin, a parasite. Tears streamed down my face, hot and bitter. Jabari, in my arms, lifted his big, innocent eyes to mine and tried to wipe away my tears with his small hand. My heart felt like it had been stabbed. What should I do? Go in? Cause a scene? Suddenly, a strange calm came over me. If I went in now, what would I gain? I would lose everything. I would be the failed woman, abandoned by her husband, and perhaps even lose my son. I took a deep breath. I had to hear more. I needed to know what they planned to do to me. Inside, after their act, the voices started again. This time, it was Zahara. "Zalani, and that plan about the $50,000 fake debt for the company, do you think it's safe? I'm scared." Zalani reassured her. "Don't worry, my love. The accounting manager is a trusted man. The fake ledgers, the loss reports, the massive debt. It's all prepared. In court, I'll say the company is on the verge of bankruptcy. Kemet doesn't understand anything about finances. She'll panic and sign the divorce papers without hesitation. She'll leave here with nothing, and on top of that, with the reputation of abandoning her husband in distress. All the company's real assets have already been transferred to a subsidiary in my mother's name. She'll never find them. The floor opened up beneath me. What cruelty! What wickedness! After we get married and the company stabilizes, if I want him, I'll take him. This last sentence was like a hammer smashing my heart. Even his own son was seen as a tool, an object that could be discarded and retrieved later. My tears stopped falling. An icy cold ran down my spine. The man in there was no longer Zalani, the husband I loved. He was a monster. I looked at Jabari, who had fallen asleep on my shoulder. "My son, forgive me. Mommy was too naive, but don't worry. I won't let anyone take you from me. I won't let anyone hurt us." I held him tighter. The $50 million ticket in my pocket was no longer a gift of luck. It was my weapon. It was the lifeline for me and my son, and it would be my tool for revenge. I turned and walked away silently, like a shadow. I couldn't let them discover me. I had to get out of there immediately. The receptionist saw me leave with a surprised expression. "Kemet, leaving already? You didn't even get to see Mr. Jones." I managed to force a crooked smile, my voice trembling uncontrollably. "Ah, I forgot my wallet at home. I have to go get it. Please don't tell Zalani I was here. I want to come back tomorrow to give him a surprise." "Sure thing, Kemet." The girl seemed confused, but didn't ask anything else. I rushed out of the building, called another Uber, and as soon as I sat in the back seat hugging my son, I let the sobs erupt. I cried for my stupidity. I cried for my dead love. I cried for the cruelty of the man I considered my world. The car drove off, taking with it a woman who had just died and another who was being reborn from the ashes of betrayal. His plan was a $50,000 fake debt. I had $50 million. "Seriously, Zalani, you chose this path. Now we're going to play, and I'll play with you until the very end." The car stopped in front of our small, familiar street. I barely had the strength to get Jabari out of the car. My entire body was shaking, not from exhaustion, but from overwhelming shock. I paid the driver with trembling hands, almost dropping the money. I stumbled into the house with Jabari in my arms. Fortunately, he was sleeping soundly on my shoulder and didn't have to witness his mother's pitiful state. I gently laid him in bed, took off his shoes, and covered him carefully. Looking at his angelic face, I couldn't hold back anymore. I ran to the bathroom and locked the door. I turned the water faucet on full blast to drown out the sound of my crying. I sat on the cold floor, clutching my chest, and wept. I cried as I had never cried in my life. The tears ran hot and bitter. I cried for my fate, for 5 years of love that was ultimately nothing more than a sham. The man I called my husband, whom I blindly trusted, to whom I was about to hand over a fortune, was in bed with another woman. Not only that, he called me a country bumpkin, a parasite. He cruelly planned to kick me out empty-handed, and worse, with a $50,000 fake debt, an amount that, even if I worked like a slave my whole life, I could never pay. He wanted to destroy me. He wanted to make sure I could never get back on my feet. Why? What had I done wrong? I stayed home caring for our son, cooking, washing clothes, keeping the house immaculate. I saved every penny. I didn't buy new lipstick or a nice blouse. It was all for him, for our son, for the supposedly struggling company. And all my sacrifice, in his eyes, was just that of a parasite. Suddenly, I remembered the $50 million ticket in my pocket and his $50,000 debt plan. What irony! Never in my life had I felt so ridiculous. If I hadn't won the lottery today, if I hadn't thought to go to his company, what would have happened? I would probably receive the divorce papers in a few weeks. I would be in shock with the $50,000 debt. I would kneel, begging him, and end up leaving humiliated, losing my son and my future. The more I thought, the drier my tears became, giving way to a flame of rage. No, it wasn't rage, it was hatred. a hatred that reached my very bones. My love for Zalani died the moment I heard him say, "He stays with his mother for now. Later, if I want him, I'll take him." A father who talks about his own son like an object, a tool to control his wife. He's not a human being, he's an animal. And I lived with an animal for 5 years without knowing it. I was so stupid. I looked at myself in the mirror, a disheveled woman, eyes swollen, face pale. Bumpkin. Yes, maybe I was a bumpkin. I was a bumpkin for believing in a single love, for believing in promises of fidelity. But from this moment on, that country bumpkin is dead. I had to live for my son. Jabari was my life. There was no way I could let a monster like Zalani take him. He wanted me empty-handed. I was going to teach him what it was like to have nothing. He wanted to play with fake ledgers. I was going to play a much bigger game with him. I took a deep breath and dried my tears. The cold from the tiled floor gave me a strange calm. I had to make a plan. This $50 million ticket was a secret of life and death. No one could know, not even my parents. At least for now, it was my ultimate weapon. I had to claim this prize as safely and secretly as possible. I couldn't do it in my name. If I did, when we divorced, Zalani would find out and be entitled to claim half. Even if the prize was won before or after the divorce, he would find a way to get it. I needed someone of absolute trust. I had to keep acting. I had to continue playing the role of the naive wife who knew nothing. I had to let Zalani and that tramp's little play continue smoothly. I had to let them believe that I was still the naive little sheep, easy to manipulate. I had to gather evidence, proof of his betrayal, proof that Zalani had 2 sets of books, that he evaded taxes and diverted assets. He wanted to push me to ruin with a $50,000 debt? I was going to push him to actual prison with the crimes he had committed. I stood up and washed my face with cold water. The icy water woke me up completely. The pain was still there, like a knife plunged into my heart, but reason had taken control. I was no longer the Kemet of a few hours ago. Now I was a mother who had to protect her son, a betrayed woman preparing her revenge. Zalani, you started this war. Let's see what this country bumpkin is going to do to you and your mistress. I left the bathroom with a cold, determined gaze. The first and most urgent task was to deal with the lottery ticket. The deadline to claim the prize was only 90 days. I couldn't wait, but I also couldn't go myself. If a huge amount of money suddenly appeared in my account, Zalani would know. He was my husband. Even if he didn't care about me, such a big financial change wouldn't go unnoticed. Furthermore, he was investigating my finances to plan the divorce. Any move I made could raise suspicion. I needed someone of absolute trust, someone who would never betray me, someone who would keep this secret until death. I thought of my parents. My father was an honest and simple man, but precisely because he was so honest, he sometimes spoke too much. If he knew his daughter had $50 million, he might boast to the neighbors in a moment of joy, or be easily fooled by Zalani if he went to our hometown. That left my mother. My mother was a woman who had worked hard all her life. She had little education, but she was careful, discreet, and loved me unconditionally. My mother would never do anything to harm me. Yes, only my mother could help me. I waited until night. Zalani came home as usual, looking grumpy, throwing his briefcase on the couch and loosening his tie. "I had a hell of a day at the office today. Is dinner ready?" "Yes," I mumbled, pretending to be tired. "Dinner is ready. You go shower and then come eat." He glanced at me. He saw that my eyes were a little swollen and asked, "What's wrong? Have you been crying?" My heart skipped a beat, but I had already prepared the answer. I put my hand to my forehead. "I think I'm coming down with something. I've felt sick since this afternoon. Do you think I can take Jabari and go stay with my mother in Jacksonville for a few days? I need some fresh air, and I miss her home cooking." It was a test. If he stopped me, it meant he wanted to keep an eye on me. If he accepted, it meant he still trusted that he had me in the palm of his hand. And my absence for a few days would give him even more freedom to be with his mistress. Zalani frowned for a second and then nodded. "Yes, maybe. Go rest for a few days so you can get better. I've been really busy and haven't had time to take you guys out." "Here," he said, "take some cash for your expenses." He took some bills out of his wallet, about $100, and handed them to me. I received the money, trembling, lowering my face to hide the contempt in my eyes. My money. Me, who was about to have $36 million after taxes. I had to accept his charity. It was humiliating, but I told myself, "Hold on, Kemet, you have to hold on." The next morning, I packed bags for myself and Jabari. I wore only my oldest clothes and took a Greyhound bus to my hometown. My town is in a small community in rural Florida, about a 3-hour drive from Atlanta. Sitting on the bus with Jabari in my arms, I looked out the window. I wasn't going home to rest. I was going home to take the first step of my plan. As soon as she saw me and her grandson, my mother, Safiya, was beaming. She rushed to greet us. "My daughter, why didn't you call ahead? Where's Zolani? He didn't bring you?" "I felt a little sick, so I came to spend a few days with you." I waited until nightfall when my father went to a neighbor's place for a fish fry, and Jabari was already asleep. It was just the two of us in the small kitchen. I knelt and hugged my mother's legs, crying. This time I cried for real. I told her everything. "Mama, Zolani betrayed me. He has a mistress." My mother was in shock, dropping the soup ladle. "What? What are you saying? Zolani? Such a good man." I shook my head, my face bathed in tears. "He's not good, Mama. He's a monster. He's with Zahara. That girl he said was his sister's friend. I caught them in the office. They're planning to divorce me and want to stick me with a $50,000 debt so I leave with nothing, and so he can take my son." My mother staggered, leaning on the counter, her face pale. She knew her daughter better than anyone. She knew I would never lie about something so serious. The fury of a mother exploded. "My God, that scoundrel, that animal! With a wife and son like you! I'm going to Atlanta! I'll tear that woman's eyes out, and I'll have a serious talk with that worthless husband of yours." "No, Mama." I stopped her quickly. "If we cause a scene now, I lose everything. I even lose Jabari, Mama." I looked her directly in the eyes, my voice firm but filled with desperation. "Mama, I'm begging you. You have to help me. Only you can save my son and me." I took an object wrapped in several layers of paper from my shirt pocket. The lottery ticket. I placed it in my mother's hand. "Mama, I won $50 million in the Mega Millions." My mother's eyes widened. She looked at the ticket, then at me. She thought I was in shock and delirious. "Kemet, my daughter, what are you saying?" I started crying. "It's true, Mama. God didn't abandon me. I won $50 million, but I can't go collect the prize. If Zolani finds out, he'll steal everything. Mama, you're the only person I trust. You can go collect this money for me, claim it and deposit it into your account. This is the money for me to start my life over, to fight for Jabari. You have to keep this secret. Don't tell Daddy. Don't tell anyone. Can you do that, Mama?" My mother, trembling, took the ticket. She barely knew how to read, but she recognized the figure of $50 million. She looked at me, and her gaze went from shock to compassion, and finally, to a terrifying determination. She was a woman, too. She understood her daughter's pain. She nodded firmly. "Yes, I will. Rest easy. This stays between us and God. I won't let anyone steal a single dime from you. I'll go collect the money. Tell me what I need to do." I hugged my mother tightly. The two of us, two black women in that small kitchen, now shared a monumental secret, a secret that would change all our destinies. I meticulously explained every step. She had to first call the state lottery headquarters, schedule an appointment to arrange the paperwork. She had to bring her ID. When she got there, she could ask to remain anonymous. All she had to say was that she wanted to receive the money by bank transfer. I had already prepared a new prepaid burner phone, and the next morning I would take her to open a new bank account at a credit union Zolani would never suspect. The money, about $36 million after federal and state taxes, would be safe in that account, awaiting the day I needed it. After 3 days in my hometown, having entrusted the most important mission to my mother, I took Jabari and returned to Atlanta. My mother went to the lottery headquarters wearing a face mask, completely disguised. All the paperwork was resolved without a hitch. The money was in her account. I breathed a sigh of relief. The weapon was loaded. It was time to return to my battlefield. I made sure to get home late when Zolani was already back from work. I wanted to create the image of a tired, fragile wife after the trip. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Zolani sitting on the couch watching ESPN. He didn't get up to hug his son. He just looked at us and asked, "Are you back? Are you feeling better?" I picked up Jabari, feigning barely being able to walk. "Yes, I'm feeling better now. Jabari missed the place and didn't sleep well." I set Jabari down, and he ran to his father, asking to be picked up. Zolani picked him up reluctantly, gave him a quick kiss on the cheek, and put him back down. "Go play over there so Daddy can watch TV." I looked at the scene, my heart aching, but I quickly controlled my emotions. I quietly carried the suitcases to the bedroom. Zolani followed me and closed the bedroom door. I got scared, thinking he wanted to do something, but he didn't. He stood with his arms crossed, looking at me with a serious expression. "Here we go," I thought. "He's going to start." "Kemet," he called in a grave voice. "Sit down. I need to talk to you." I pretended to be confused and worried. "What's wrong, honey? The company has problems again?" Zolani sighed deeply, a sigh I had seen him rehearse many times. "It's very difficult, honey. I'm going to be honest with you. The biggest clients canceled their contracts. The material we just imported got held up at customs, and I can't find the money. I'm about to go bankrupt." I widened my eyes, covering my mouth with my hands. My performance was so convincing that even I was surprised. "My God, how did that happen? What are we going to do, honey?" Zolani stared at me with an inquisitive look. "I've been borrowing money everywhere. I've already asked all my friends. Now all I have left is the bank, but they demand collateral, and our house is still mortgaged." He paused, as if it cost him a lot to speak. "I heard that life insurance policies for children are very good, honey. They protect their health in case of illness, and they also accumulate money for college." I raised my tearful eyes to him, sobbing. "I was going to tell you when you were in a better mood and work was going well. I didn't know the company was so bad. I don't have anything left. I spent it all, honey." "What?" Zolani shouted. He grabbed my shoulders and shook me hard. "What are you saying? What did you spend it on? It was thousands of dollars. I told you to save it for an emergency." The physical pain was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. I cried, sobbing and stammering my story. "It was for Jabari. He was sick. I felt so bad for him. I had made a mistake, hadn't I, honey? I'm sorry, I just wanted to secure our son's future." I clearly saw, for a second, a flicker of relief in Zolani's eyes, perhaps even joy. He believed it. He believed that I, his stupid wife, had just cut off his last escape route. That money, once invested in insurance, was practically lost. It couldn't be easily withdrawn to be divided in the divorce. Everything was going exactly according to his plan. He released me and let out a sigh. He pretended to put his hand to his forehead, massaging his temples with an expression of pain and disappointment. "My God, what have you done? That money was to save the company. Why didn't you ask me first? Now we really are done. We lost the money and the company is almost bankrupt too," he grumbled, pacing back and forth in the room. He was finishing his role as the dedicated husband, the poor director. I could only sit and cry. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. What do I do now? What if I go to my hometown and ask my parents for money?" "Forget it," Zolani cut in immediately. "Your parents in rural Florida barely have any money. Even if they sold all their land, it wouldn't be enough. It's done. There's nothing to do." He sat on the bed with an expression of complete discouragement. "All you know is how to be at home. You have no idea how cruel the world is out there. Just leave it. I'll figure it out." With that, he got up, grabbed his jacket, and left. "I'm going out for some air. Being at home is making me nervous." The door slammed shut. I heard the sound of his car starting. He was surely going to see Zahara to give her the good news, to celebrate that he had successfully fooled me. I stopped crying instantly. I wiped away my tears, and a cold smile appeared on my lips. Zalani, you're a great actor, but you don't know that I've just discovered my acting talent, too. We're going to be performing this play for a long time yet. You think you've cornered me? No, you've just stepped into the trap I set for you. In the days that followed that night, when Zolani went out for air, which I knew perfectly well was to meet his mistress, the atmosphere at home became as heavy as a funeral. I started cooking simpler, cheaper meals. I cut all unnecessary expenses, wore the oldest clothes at home, and always walked around looking sad and worried. I looked at him with a mixture of compassion and guilt. My "I know I messed up" expression pleased him even more after the insurance episode. He believed he had completely fallen into his trap. When I felt the time was right, one night after Jabari was asleep, I brought him a glass of warm water. "Honey, I can't stand seeing you like this anymore. I'm sorry for my mistake." He knew perfectly well that my presence wouldn't help at all, but the idea of me working for free and my humble attitude of someone wanting to redeem herself probably pleased him. Plus, I figured he thought having me at the company, under his nose and his mistress's, was a way to control me. He wanted me to see with my own eyes how badly the company was doing so that when they presented the divorce papers, I would sign without hesitation. He wanted to subject me to double humiliation. After a long moment, he clicked his tongue. "Fine. If that's what you want, it's okay with me. But I'm warning you, the office isn't our house. You do what I say without complaint, and don't talk about problems at home or the kid at the company. Do you hear me?" I nodded hastily, as happy as if I had won gold. Yes, I know. Thank you, honey. I promise I won't disappoint you. I'll do everything right." "And Jabari?" he asked. "I've already thought about that. In the morning, I'll drop him off at a private daycare near the company, and I'll pick him up in the afternoon. I'll try to organize everything." Zalani nodded. "Okay, you start on Monday, and don't dress like a slob so you don't embarrass anyone." With that, he stood up and went to the room, leaving me alone in the living room. I quickly wiped away my tears, but they weren't tears of humiliation. They were tears of the first successful step. "Zalani, you were the one who opened the door to the tiger's cage for me. You think I'm a meek little sheep, but you don't know that I've entered to unmask the wolf in sheep's clothing that you are." The following Monday, I dropped Jabari off at a private daycare 2 blocks from the company. My heart broke seeing him cry, clinging to me. I promised him, "Jabari, be good and wait for Mommy. Mommy is going to work and will come back for you. Mommy promises to give you the best life ever." I purposely chose my oldest clothes, a yellowish-white shirt and faded black pants. I put my hair up in a bun and didn't wear makeup. Looking at myself in the mirror, I was the perfect image of a country bumpkin. I had to maintain that image. Entering the company, my heart pounded uncontrollably. It was the same receptionist as the other day. Seeing me, she was surprised. I forced a smile. "Hi, starting today, I'm coming here to work. Mr. Jones got me a position doing cleaning." The girl's eyes widened, and her expression changed from surprise to pity. It was obvious she had already heard something. Of course, the story of the director on the verge of bankruptcy whose wife had to come to work for free to help pay the debts must have been a touching tale Zalani had invented to tell the employees. Zalani came out of his office, and he wasn't alone. Next to him was Zahara. That day she wore a tight, wine-red designer dress that enhanced her curves, wavy hair, flawless makeup, and expensive perfume. The two of them, side by side, looked like a successful couple, and I, in the corner of the office, looked like a maid. Zalani cleared his throat and clapped to get attention. "Staff, I want to introduce you to Kemet, my wife. As you all know, our company is going through some difficulties." He began his dramatic speech. "Kemet, to share the burden with her husband, has offered to come and help us. She'll handle the small tasks in the office, like serving coffee, making photocopies, and cleaning. If you need anything, you can ask her." All eyes turned to me. There was curiosity, pity, and a little contempt. I lowered my head. "I count on your help." Then Zalani turned to his mistress. "Zahara, you are my assistant and the most resourceful person here. Can you give Mrs. Jones her initial instructions? As for a workspace, she can use that small table in the archive corner." Zahara smiled sideways, a smile whose meaning only I understood, the smile of the winner. She approached me, her red dress dazzling. She extended a hand with nails painted bright red. "Hello, I'm Zahara, the director's assistant. It's a pleasure to work with you from now on. If you don't understand anything, you can ask me. Don't be shy." The way she emphasized, "with you," the way she said, "director's assistant," it was all provocation. I took a deep breath, extended my rough hand, and squeezed her soft one. "Thank you. I'll try to do my best." My job began. Just as Zalani said, I was nothing more than a maid. In the morning, I had to arrive before everyone else to clean the desks and fill the water coolers. When everyone arrived, I had to serve coffee and tea to each person. Zolani and Zahara were the first to be served. "Kemet," Zahara called, sitting with her legs crossed at her desk. "My coffee today has to be a good espresso. I don't drink just anything." "Kemet, photocopy these documents, 20 copies of each. And hurry up, Director Zalani has a meeting in 10 minutes. Zalani was even worse. He made sure to be cold and distant with me in front of everyone. He treated me like a low-level employee. He didn't hesitate to call Zahara into his office and slam the door shut. Sometimes, when I went to bring water, I heard their laughter inside. I had to wait at the door. Once, Zahara came out with slightly swollen lips and a misaligned collar. She looked at me defiantly. I clenched my teeth and endured. Every humiliation I suffered today would turn into a stab I would give them later. I had to endure. I worked in silence, cleaning, serving. I acted clumsy and slow on purpose so they would despise me even more. But I wasn't just cleaning. My eyes were observing everything. My ears were listening to everything. I paid attention to who was friends with whom, who spoke ill of whom. And my main target was the accounting department, where the head accountant, Mrs. Eleanor, worked. Zalani's office wasn't large. It had about a dozen employees. Accounting was in a corner with 3 people, a recent graduate named Mia, an accountant named Dennis, and the main manager, Mrs. Eleanor. She was about 40, a robust woman with a perpetually serious expression and few words. She was the oldest employee, having been there since the company started. At first, I felt a little confused. I remembered Zalani telling Zahara, "The accounting manager is a trusted man." If Mrs. Eleanor was Zalani's confidant and was helping him falsify the books, I wouldn't have a chance. But I decided I had to get close to her. I used my old tactic, sincerity and a poor little me demeanor. Every morning, in addition to coffee for Zalani and Zahara, I prepared a cup of herbal tea for Mrs. Eleanor. "I noticed you're coughing a bit. Drink this to soothe your throat." Mrs. Eleanor looked at me in surprise, but accepted with a nod. "Thank you. Oh." At lunchtime, everyone went out to eat. I stayed in the office, bringing a Tupperware from home. White rice, some steamed vegetables, and a fried egg. I did it on purpose. Mrs. Eleanor also usually brought a Tupperware. I glanced at hers and saw it was equally simple. I approached to chat. "Mrs. Eleanor, enjoy your meal. My food isn't much, but I brought some pickled okra my mother sent me. Would you like to try some?" I offered her a small jar. Mrs. Eleanor looked at me, and her gaze softened a bit. "You have a difficult life, taking care of your son and also coming to work here. The company lately," she sighed. I took the opportunity, my eyes filling with tears. "Mrs. Eleanor, is the company really doing badly? I'm so worried. Zalani comes home constantly irritated. Sometimes he doesn't even come home. I'm so scared. What if the company really goes bankrupt? I don't know how my son and I will survive." I wanted her to see that I was trustworthy and at the same time stupid without any knowledge of accounting. And I started to notice the tension between Mrs. Eleanor and the Solani-Zahara duo. Zahara, being the director's mistress, frequently went to the accounting department to give orders. "Mrs. Eleanor, why is this budget taking so long? Director Zalani is waiting." "Eleanor, my advance for representation expenses hasn't been approved yet. Don't you know I'm busy?" Mrs. Eleanor, being older and a veteran employee, felt insulted by a bold young woman who treated her that way. She would turn red with anger, but swallow her pride. "I know you can leave. When it's ready, I'll call you." I was nearby, cleaning a table, and saw everything. After Zahara left, Mrs. Eleanor muttered, "A self-important brat who thinks she's somebody. What a lack of respect." I knew it. My opportunity was there. Mrs. Eleanor was not Zalani's confidant. She worked for him because he paid her well, but she despised him and his mistress. She despised the way Zalani treated me, his lifelong wife. A few days later, I stayed late at the office. I told Zalani that Jabari had a fever and I had left him with a neighbor. I had to stay to finish cleaning. Zalani nodded. He was also in a rush to leave, obviously with Zahara. The office was left only with Mrs. Eleanor and me. Mrs. Eleanor looked at me with pity. "Men, their careers are always first. Don't think about it too much. Come on, eat." She didn't say anything. Her computer restarted, but instead of opening the Excel file with the losses, it opened a different file named goldmine.xlsx. Mrs. Eleanor had forgotten to close it before restarting. My heart pounded uncontrollably. I looked towards the door. She was still in the coffee area. Trembling, I grabbed the mouse and clicked on the file. It opened. My God, my vision blurred. They weren't lost reports. It was a completely different world. Signed contracts, the real values received, money transfers to an account in the name of a company called Cradle & Sons, LLC. I remembered. Cradle was Solani's father's last name. This was the subsidiary company he had created to divert assets. The result was not a $50,000 loss, but a net profit of over $2 million. I started shaking. I quickly looked for a USB drive in Mrs. Eleanor's drawer. I knew she usually kept one there, but it wasn't there. Darn. I heard her footsteps approaching. I quickly minimized the Goldmine file and left the screen showing the loss report. It was just in time. Mrs. Eleanor entered with a cup of coffee. What a drag. She sat down and reopened the Excel file with the losses, continuing to work as if nothing had happened. She didn't know what I had seen, or was it on purpose? The file name, Goldmine, the forgetting to close it, the leaving to get coffee. I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing. I had found the treasure. I knew where it was. I just needed one more chance, a chance to copy it. I looked at the computer and memorized the file path. I would buy a USB drive that night. Tomorrow, I would act. That night, on the way home, after picking up Jabari, I stopped at a small electronics store. I bought the cheapest USB drive I could find, a black 16-gigabyte one. I hid it carefully in my bra. I couldn't sleep all night, my heart pounding. I had seen the treasure, but how would I get it? I couldn't count on luck a second time. I couldn't expect Mrs. Eleanor to randomly go get coffee again. I had to create my own opportunity. I thought intensely. I needed a reason for her to step away long enough for me to copy that Goldmine file. The file had to be heavy. It contained all the real financial data for several years. A few seconds wouldn't be enough. The next morning, I arrived at the company with a plan. I had prepared a small bottle of water hidden in my cleaning bucket. I continued with my tasks, cleaning, serving coffee, observing like a predator. Zahara seemed tired that day. She didn't give me as many orders as usual. Zalani was constantly on the phone. He seemed worried about something. Only the accounting department remained quiet at lunchtime. Now was the time. People started leaving for lunch. As usual, Mrs. Eleanor brought her Tupperware. Zahara, who was complaining of fatigue, stayed slumped at her desk and didn't go out to eat. Zalani had already left. It couldn't be. With Zahara there, I couldn't act. I had to wait. Patience, Kemet. Half an hour later, Zalani returned by car, stopped abruptly at the door, and walked in. He saw Zahara slumped over and approached, looking worried. "What's wrong? Are you feeling sick?" Zahara pouted. "I'm tired. I think my blood sugar is low." Zalani, distressed, said, "Well, let's go get some chicken noodle soup. I'll take you to get some so you feel better." Zahara nodded. Zalani helped her up and glanced at me. "Kemet, stay in charge of the office. If anyone calls, say the boss is out." They left. Now it was just Mrs. Eleanor and me in the office. She was finishing her Tupperware. My opportunity had arrived. I couldn't lose a second. I quietly pushed my cleaning cart towards the coffee area where the electric kettle and the outlets were. I looked at Mrs. Eleanor. She was still eating, her eyes fixed on the computer screen, probably watching a show. I took a deep breath and took out the small bottle of water. I plugged in the kettle's cord, but left it halfway loose. Slowly I started pouring the water, not inside the kettle, but directly onto the outlet on the wall. Fast! A small, sharp crack, a blue spark jumping from the outlet, and a smell of burning. Immediately the circuit breaker in the corner of the office tripped. The entire office went dark. Mrs. Eleanor's computer shut off. The sound of the show stopped. "My God, what was that?" Mrs. Eleanor screamed, nearly spilling her Tupperware. I ran from the coffee area, my face pale. This time, my fear was genuine. I stammered, my voice trembling. "Mrs. Eleanor, I was plugging in the kettle, and suddenly it sparked. It smells like burning. I'm so scared." Mrs. Eleanor, being a careful and older person, genuinely panicked at the thought of a short circuit. "Girl, I told you to be careful with electricity. Where did it happen?" She turned on her phone's flashlight and rushed toward the coffee area. I pointed to the outlet that was still smoking slightly. "A spark jumped out there. That scared me so much." "Don't just stand there scared. Go flip the main breaker switch. It's by the entrance. Hurry!" Mrs. Eleanor ordered, while trying to pull the burnt plug out of the wall. This was it. It was all I needed. She was in the coffee area. I had to go all the way to the door to flip the breaker. The path from the door to the accounting department was perfect. Yes, I'm going." I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and ran to the main door where the electrical panel was. I opened it and pretended to be confused for a moment. "Mrs. Eleanor, there are so many. I don't know which one it is." "It's the biggest one, the red one. Flip it up," her voice shouted from afar. I flipped the breaker. Click! The office lights turned on. "It's back on, Mrs. Eleanor. What a fright!" "Come here and help me. This outlet is all wet. Bring a dry cloth and clean this up immediately." "Coming." I ran in, but instead of going to the coffee area, I went straight to Mrs. Eleanor's desk. My heart felt like it was going to jump out of my chest. The computer had power. Trembling, I pressed the power button to turn it on. While waiting, I strained my ears. I still heard Mrs. Eleanor grumbling in the coffee area. What a disaster! A short circuit like that, and it could burn up all the equipment. The computer turned on. I quickly inserted the USB drive. My hands were shaking so much I missed the USB port several times. Calm, I told myself. I opened my PC. I didn't know if she had put a password on the file. I went to the D drive, to the accounting folder, then internal, and there it was. Goldmine XLSX. I held my breath and double-clicked the file. A dialog box appeared. Enter password. Darn. I froze. Password. What was the password? What do I do now? Mrs. Eleanor was about to leave. I panicked. I looked at her desk. A yellow Post-it note stuck to the screen. Santi's B-Day 15. It must be it, I thought, trembling. I typed 0015. Enter. Incorrect password. My God, that wasn't it. What could it be? I looked at her desk calendar. Mrs. Eleanor had a day marked in red. December 25th, Christmas. I typed 1225. Enter. Incorrect again. Kemet, why are you taking so long? Where is the cloth? Mrs. Eleanor shouted. It sounded like she was coming out. I was desperate. What to do? Should I laugh? No. I looked at the computer again. I remembered that Mrs. Eleanor was a careful person. The password must be something she would never forget. I remembered the file name. Gold. What reminds me of gold? Gold reminds me of money, of power. Kemet! Mrs. Eleanor came out of the coffee area. I startled. I quickly pulled out the USB drive. I had failed. I grabbed the first cleaning cloth I found. Here I am. I was looking for it. Mrs. Eleanor looked at me. Why is your face so pale? What a mess. Get out of the way. She walked toward her desk, grumbling. With a short circuit like this, I don't know if the computer survived. She sat down. She double-clicked the gold mine. ALSX file. The password box appeared. I was standing behind her. I held my breath. Mrs. Eleanor started typing. I strained my eyes. I couldn't see her fingers, but I saw the shadow of her hand move. She typed, Eleanor, 1978, the year of her birth. The file opened. My God, the password was her name and her year of birth. Mrs. Eleanor checked a few numbers and muttered, Fortunately, I didn't lose the data. Then she closed the file. I stood paralyzed. I had the password, but I had lost the opportunity. Mrs. Eleanor would never let the computer shut down again. The outlet was broken. I couldn't repeat the trick. I felt completely defeated. I spent the rest of the day working like a soul in torment, but fate hadn't abandoned me. At the end of the afternoon, Zahara started her exhaustion act again. She clutched her stomach, grimacing. Zolani rushed to her, worried. Are you feeling sick again? Do you want to go to the doctor? I think if I go home to rest, I'll feel better. Can you take me? Zolani nodded and turned to accounting. Mrs. Eleanor, the quarterly accounting will wait until tomorrow. Zahara and I have to leave now. You take care of locking up. All right, Mr. Jones. Zolani and Zahara left. The other employees also started to leave. About 10 minutes later, I opened my USB drive. Right-click, paste. The progress bar appeared. 10%, 30%, 50%. The file was very heavy, over 300 megabytes with all the scanned contracts. 70%, 90%. Suddenly, I heard footsteps in the hallway. My God, who came back at this hour? I panicked. I wanted to pull out the USB drive, but the file was still copying. If I pulled it out, I would ruin everything. The footsteps were getting closer. They stopped right at the office door. The sound of a key going into the lock. Click. The door opened. It was Mrs. Eleanor. She had come back. I stood petrified next to the turned-on computer, with the progress bar blinking in the middle of the screen. Mrs. Eleanor looked at me, then at the computer screen, and finally at my USB drive connected to her computer. Her face changed color. What are you doing, Kemet? Her voice trembled. I didn't know what to do. I was finished. She was going to scream. She was going to call Solani, and I would lose everything. I stammered. The progress bar showed 100%. Copy complete. Mrs. Eleanor saw the message. She looked at me with a complex expression, a mixture of anger, fear, and something else. Desperate, I knelt down. Mrs. Eleanor, I beg you, I plead with you, don't tell Zolani. Mrs. Eleanor raised her hand, signaling me to be quiet. She quickly went to the door and peered into the hallway. No one. She firmly closed the door and locked it. She turned to me, still kneeling. Get up. Her voice was cold. What do you want that for? Tell me the truth. You already know everything, don't you? About Solani and Zahara. I was in shock. You know. Mrs. Eleanor laughed bitterly, a tired laugh. In this company, who doesn't know? Only you, who he thinks is stupid. I came back because I forgot my phone, but it seems I came back at the right time. Mrs. Eleanor, I started crying. I beg you. He is so cruel. He wants to divorce me. Leave me with a $50,000 debt. Him and Zahara. I have to save myself. I have to save my son. Mrs. Eleanor looked at me for a long moment and sighed. I know. I've been working here for a long time. I know what kind of person he is. He uses me to falsify the books, to evade taxes. I've turned a blind eye because of the money, but I'm also a woman, and I'm disgusted by the way he treats you." She bent down, pulled my USB drive out of the computer, and handed it to me. "Take it. Pretend I didn't see anything. Pretend I didn't come back today." I couldn't believe it. "Just go," Mrs. Eleanor said in a firm voice. "Take that and don't show up here again starting tomorrow. With this in your hand, you don't need to pretend to be the cleaning lady anymore. And don't say I was the one who helped you. I don't want trouble. My help is a way to redeem some of my guilt." It was her. She had purposely left the password visible that morning. I looked at her, my face flooded with tears. "Thank you. I'll be eternally grateful." "Don't thank me. Go quickly," she pushed me. "And use that intelligently. Don't let him know you have this until the last moment." I nodded repeatedly. I grabbed the USB drive, my most precious weapon. I bowed to Mrs. Eleanor and ran out of the office. I ran as if my life depended on it, hugging my and my son's salvation to my chest. I had the evidence. Now, Zolani, wait for me. After that fateful night, I didn't go back to the company. The next morning, I called Zolani using my usual weak, trembling voice. "Honey, I'm sorry. I'm not going to work at the company anymore." Zolani shouted into the phone. "What's wrong now? You just started and you're already complaining?" "No, it's not that. Yesterday Zahara insulted me. She called me a parasite, a hindrance. I felt so humiliated. I can't take it anymore. I prefer to stay home taking care of our son, please." I knew perfectly well that Zolani would never ask Zahara if it was true. Hearing that I felt humiliated and was withdrawing voluntarily, he could only be happy. "Fine, do what you want." And he hung up. So I returned to my role as a stay-at-home mom, but my mind wasn't at home. I made several copies of the USB drive. I sent one to my mother to keep in her safe deposit box. I hid another inside an old stuffed bear of Jabari's, and a third I encrypted and stored in an anonymous cloud storage service. The weapon was ready. I was just waiting for the opportunity, and the opportunity came faster than I thought. Zolani started coming home more frequently, but not to have dinner with me. He came to get things. He took his best suit, his expensive cologne. He was openly moving out. Zahara, just as I suspected, was truly pregnant. She didn't go to the company as much anymore. Zolani told me he had to travel constantly for work, but I knew he was in another apartment taking care of his pregnant mistress. One day, I was feeding Jabari applesauce when Zolani suddenly walked in, looking furious. But strangely, he didn't shout at me. He sat on the couch and stared at me. "Kemet, I need to talk to you." I jumped up, feigning a startle. "Yes, is it something important?" He went straight to the point. Perhaps he thought I was already so defeated and useless that he didn't need to continue the charade of the bankrupt company. "I want a divorce." Those two words, even though I had prepared myself 1,000 times for them, still caused pain in my chest. The pain was real. "Oh, what are you saying?" I dropped the applesauce spoon. Zolani laughed disdainfully, the same cruel smile I had seen in the office. "You heard me right. Divorce. I don't feel anything for you anymore. Living with you is hell." I jumped up, my voice trembling. "You don't feel anything anymore? Hell? How dare you say that? What about our son? What about the kid?" Zolani shrugged. "Don't worry. Even after the divorce, I'll uphold my responsibilities. But to be honest, I already have someone else." He admitted it. He admitted it openly. "Who is it? Is it Zahara?" I shouted. Zolani smiled sideways. "You already knew. That's better." "Yes, it's Zahara. She's better than you." He paused as if to deliver the final blow. "She's pregnant with my child." My God, even knowing, even having heard, when he said it shamelessly to my face, I felt my blood boil. You are an animal!" I screamed, lunging at him, scratching him. "How dare you? How dare you do this to us? What did I do wrong? I sacrificed myself for you, and you go to bed with another woman and get her pregnant. You scoundrel!" Zolani pushed me away easily. I fell to the floor. He straightened his shirt and looked at me with disgust. "Are you done with the scene? It's because of that attitude of yours that I got sick of you. A neglectful woman who only knows how to yell and cry. Look at you. How pathetic. He was humiliating me in my own home. Okay, he said in a firm voice. I'm going to be clear. First, divorce. Second, this house is mortgaged to the bank and will be foreclosed. You won't keep anything. Third, my company is truly bankrupt. I'm full of debt. If you want, I'll divide it with you. He was still using the story of bankruptcy and debt to scare me. He thought I was still the fool I was before. I sat on the floor and cried. I cried convulsively. I cried for the 5 years of my youth I threw away on a dog. I cried for my stupidity. I don't want anything. I won't sue. I don't want debts. I just want... I raised my tearful eyes to him. My most important performance was beginning. The performance that would decide my son's future. I crawled on the floor and grabbed Zolani's legs, a humiliating act I never thought I would do. But I had to do it. I had to perfectly play the role of a defeated, cornered woman. Honey, please, I beg you. You say you have someone else, another child. I accept it. I sobbed, my face covered in tears and snuff. Do you agree? I nodded repeatedly, happy as a castaway who finds a life raft. Agreed. Agreed to everything. Prepare the papers. I'll sign. The papers are already prepared. He coldly threw a pile of papers onto the table, just like in the nightmare I had. The mutual consent divorce agreement, already with his signature, pointed to the clause, no shared assets exist. No shared debts exist. The minor son Jabari remains under the custody of the mother Kemet. The father Zolani is exempt from paying alimony. It was even crueler than his plan. He didn't even write temporarily. He wrote exempt to free himself from all responsibilities. Sign. He threw the pen at me. Trembling, I took the pen. Tears fell again, but this time no one knew they were tears of happiness. He, with his arrogance and cruelty, had just given me the greatest gift of all. He had just signed his own sentence. I signed. Kemet Jones. My signature this time was firm and strong. Zolani snatched the paper from my hand, verified the signature, and smiled contentedly. Great. Now gather your things and the kids and disappear. The bank is coming to foreclose on the house this week. I don't want them to find you here. It would be another complication. He lied without blinking. The house was being paid for, but with his company's real money, he could have paid it off in full. He just wanted me to leave as soon as possible. I'll be at the family court the day after tomorrow at 9 a.m. Let's get this over with. With that, he turned to leave. He didn't even look into the room where his own son was playing. The door slammed shut. I remained sitting on the floor. The crying stopped. I slowly got up and dried my tears. A cold smile appeared on my lips. Zolani, you've played your part. Now it's my turn to take the stage. I walked into the room and hugged Jabari tightly. Jabari, my darling son, we're free. Come on, my love. Let's pack. We're going to a much better place. My son looked at me confused and then smiled. His smile was my sunshine. Yes, I was going to give my son the best life ever, with my $36 million and with his father's downfall. On the day of the hearing, it was pouring rain in Atlanta, as if the rain wanted to wash away the last remnants of my 5-year marriage. With Jabari in my arms, I deliberately dressed in my oldest clothes and huddled by the door of the courtroom. Zolani and Zahara arrived later. He was driving a luxury car I had never seen. He opened the door and helped Zahara out as if she were a queen. Zahara wore an elegant maternity dress, sunglasses, and an arrogant expression. Her belly was already showing. They walked past me. Zolani didn't even look at his own son. He looked at me and said harshly, "Get in. Let's get this over with." The mutual consent divorce hearing was incredibly fast. The judge, a woman with a tired air, looked at the file. "Kemet and Zolani, have you thought this through?" We replied in unison. "Yes. The parties agree that the minor son Jabari remains under the custody of the mother Kemet, and the father Zolani is exempt from paying alimony. No shared assets or debts exist. Is this correct?" My heart sank hearing exempt from paying alimony, but I pretended to lower my head and mumbled in a trembling voice, "Yes, it's correct." Zalani replied clearly and firmly, "Correct, Your Honor." Zahara, sitting in the back row, smiled sideways. Her smile was like 1,000 needles sticking into me. "Wait, darling. Laugh now because you'll cry soon. The court approves the divorce agreement. As of today, you are no longer husband and wife." The gavel struck. Boom! A dry sound that ended everything. I left the courthouse with Jabari in my arms. Zalani and Zahara were ahead, whispering and laughing, as if they had just gotten rid of a great weight. He didn't even turn around to say goodbye to his son. I stood in the rain, hugging my son tightly. I was free. A 32-year-old woman, betrayed by her husband, with nothing, a child in her arms, in the middle of the rain. This was the image Zalani wanted to see, and it was the image I gave him, but he didn't know it. In the pocket of my old coat was a brand new burner phone, and in my mother's bank account, $36 million. I didn't return to the dilapidated rental room I had moved to after leaving their house. No, that place was just part of the show. I grabbed my son and called a luxury Uber to the most exclusive area of the Atlanta suburbs, a high-rise condo complex overlooking the Chattahoochee River. "Please." The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror, a disheveled woman with a small child, asking to go to one of the most expensive places in Atlanta. But I didn't care. I had used my money, well, my mother's money. I had asked my mother to buy a luxury condo there in her name. I paid almost $1 million for it. I needed an absolutely secure place for me and my son, a place with 24-hour security, with controlled access. A place where Zalani wouldn't think I could be even in his wildest dreams. Entering the new apartment was like entering another world. A 1,300-square-foot condo with luxury furnishings and views of the river. Jabari, who had only known our small house since he was born, was beaming at the sight of the space. He shouted for joy and ran everywhere. I set him down on the warm wooden floor and went to the bathroom. I got under the shower, the water running strong. I scrubbed myself as if I wanted to wash away all the dirty traces of the last year. I cried. This time, I cried tears of relief. That night, I ordered the best takeout food. I didn't need to look at prices. I bought a mountain of new toys for Jabari. I threw away all my old clothes. I called my mother. "Mama, I'm divorced now." My mother's voice on the other end sounded relieved. "Yes, thank goodness. You're free, my daughter. And now what are you going to do?" I looked at the city of Atlanta, illuminated through the huge window. The lights shone like thousands of diamonds. "Mama?" My voice sounded cold and determined. "Now is when I start. I'm not going to let them live in peace. I'm going to take everything back. I'm going to make them pay." I hung up the phone. I opened my laptop. I opened the USB drive that Mrs. Eleanor had accidentally given me. It was time to find one person, a person who hated Zalani as much as I did. My revenge plan had officially begun. The first name on my list was Malik, the former partner Zalani had told me about one drunken night, boasting about how he had pushed him out of the company. I didn't know much about Malik. I only vaguely remembered Zalani bragging that the company had been co-founded by both of them. Malik was from the technical side, professionally excellent, while Zalani handled the commercial side. When the company started making a profit, Zalani used accounting tricks to deceive Malik, making him sign documents for fake debts and forcing him out of the company empty-handed and with a huge debt. It sounded familiar. Apparently, I wasn't his first victim. I couldn't look for Malik personally. If I started asking questions and the news reached Zalani's ears, he would immediately suspect. An ex-wife looking for her husband's former partner? Why? I decided to use the money. I searched online for a reliable private detective agency. I paid a considerable sum to find all the information about a man named Malik, the former founding partner of Zalani's company. My request was clear: speed and absolute secrecy. 3 days later, I had a voluminous dossier on my desk. Malik, 42 years old. After being deceived by Zalani, he went bankrupt. His wife left him, and he currently owned a small metal fabrication workshop in Lithonia, Georgia. The workshop was losing money and had debts with the bank and lenders. He was cornered. Perfect. A man who has nothing to lose is the most dangerous ally. I drove my brand new car, also in my mother's name, of course, to Lithonia. I didn't dress luxuriously. I wore a simple but clean and neat skirt suit. I didn't want to scare him, but I also didn't want him to underestimate me. Malik's workshop was on a dirt road. It was a dilapidated shed with the sound of lathes and welding machines echoing. I walked in, and the smell of oil and rust filled my nostrils. A middle-aged man, disheveled and with grease-stained face, was fixing a machine. He looked defeated, but his eyes were bright, the eyes of a talented but unlucky man. "Excuse me, I'm looking for Mr. Malik." The man looked up and wiped his hands with a rag. He squinted at me. "That's me? Who's asking? Are you here to buy something?" I shook my head. "I'm not here to buy anything. I want to talk to you. A very important matter." Malik looked me up and down, suspicious. "I don't have time. As you can see, I'm busy. If it's not work, I ask you to leave." "The matter is related to Solani." I had barely finished speaking when the wrench in his hand fell to the floor with a clatter. He jumped up, his body tense as a violin string, his eyes red with fury. "What did you say? Solani? Who are you?" I looked him directly in the eyes and said clearly, "My name is Kemet. I am Solani's ex-wife." Malik was stunned, then laughed bitterly. "Ex-wife? What kind of game is this? Did he send you here? To take away this junky workshop? Go tell him I'd rather die than give it to him. I was tricked once. That was more than enough." "You're wrong." My voice turned cold. "I'm just like you. I was also just tricked by him, kicked out of the house without a dime. He stole everything from me and is now living happily with his mistress." Malik's look of rage slowly transformed into shock. He looked at me and saw the sincerity in my eyes. He saw the same hatred he felt. "Are you serious?" he stammered. "I didn't come here to complain." I stepped closer. "I came to ask you a question. Do you hate him? Do you want to take back everything he stole from you? Do you want to see him bankrupt, empty-handed, just like he made us?" In that noisy, dirty workshop, two people, two victims of Solani, looked at each other. I saw a flame rekindle in Malik's eyes from the ashes. He clenched his teeth. "Hate? I want to tear him apart. I want to see him dead." I nodded. "Great. Then, Mr. Malik, let's become partners." Malik looked at me suspiciously. "Partners? How? You say you don't have money. I'm also about to close down. What can two people with nothing do against him?" I smiled slightly. A smile I had held back for a long time. "You are half right. You are about to close down." On the other hand, I opened my briefcase and took out a dossier. "I have nothing except two things. First, evidence of tax evasion, asset diversion, and all the real accounting for Solani's company." Malik's eyes widened. He grabbed the dossier with trembling hands and started skimming through it. Being in the industry, he immediately understood that it was genuine. My God, how did you get this?" "You don't need to know how," I continued in a calm voice. "And second, and more importantly, how much money do you need to destroy his company?" Malik looked at me as if I were a monster. He didn't understand what was happening. A woman who had just been kicked out of the house with nothing, with secret ledgers, and asking how much money he needed. She must be joking with me. He still didn't believe it. "The Solani of today is not the same as before. His company is strong. He has many contacts. Destroying him is not a joke. It takes a lot of money." "How much is a lot?" I asked directly. "You are the best at the technical side, the production. You know his strengths and weaknesses. Tell me." Malik took a deep breath. The flame in his eyes ignited. It was the opportunity of his life. To destroy him, we can't compete in small things. We have to take a different, faster, stronger path. His merchandise comes mainly from China, old, cheap models. But lately, the market prefers the high quality of Japan. If we secure an exclusive distribution contract with a major Japanese brand, use new technology to produce better products at competitive prices, we can steal all his big clients. For that, we need a new modern factory, a new production line, and most importantly, capital. Money to negotiate with the Japanese partners, money to pay the debts of this workshop of mine. He paused and looked at me, almost shouting. At least $500,000 is the minimum. He stated the amount as a test. He thought I would faint. I remained silent. $500,000. In my revenge plan, that amount was already anticipated. I looked him directly in the eyes. Agreed. I will give you $500,000. Once again, the workshop seemed to stop. The sound of the machines outside seemed to silence. You... Mr. Malik took a step back. Are you in your right mind? $500,000? Where are you going to get that money? I won't waste time with talk. I took out my phone and opened my mother's credit union app. I had full power of attorney. I hid the total balance. I only showed him that I could make a transfer. Mr. Malik, I don't have time for jokes. I have the money. Where it comes from, you don't need to know. You only need to know that it is clean money and that it is for our revenge. I continued. I'm not giving you the money in hand. We are going to create a new company. You choose the name. You, with your experience and knowledge, will be the CEO responsible for all operations. You will have 20% of the company's shares. I will be the anonymous investor with 80% of the shares. I will not interfere in your area of expertise. I only demand one thing: a weekly financial report and the final goal. Zolani's company has to go bankrupt. I handed him a contract I had already prepared. I had everything planned. This $500,000, I pointed to the contract, will be transferred as soon as the new company is established. $250,000 to pay your debts and build the new factory. $250,000 to negotiate with the Japanese partners. Can you do it? Malik, trembling, read the contract quickly. The clauses were clear and fair. To a man about to drown, a golden life raft had suddenly been thrown. He raised his head, his eyes filling with tears, not of weakness, but of a man who had been oppressed for too long. Kemet, he clenched his fists. Do you trust me that much? I don't trust you, I said coldly. I trust your hatred. I believe that a talented man, stabbed in the back by his best friend who stole everything from him, including his wife, will never forget that debt. I am investing in your hatred. Don't disappoint me. Malik squeezed his hands tightly, veins bulging. He nodded determinedly. Agreed. I accept. I, Malik, swear to you that I will use this $500,000 and my own life to drag that scoundrel Zolani to hell. I will make him kneel and beg. I nodded. Great. Then choose the company name. Malik thought for a second, looked at me, and looked out of the workshop. Phoenix LLC. We, the two of us, will be reborn from the ashes. Phoenix, I murmured to myself. An excellent name. I extended my hand. It's a pleasure to meet you, Director Malik. I hope we have a successful partnership. Malik squeezed my hand. The handshake of two abandoned people sealed their alliance. The game of chess had begun. The first and decisive move had been made. 6 months passed in a blink. My life was now a completely different picture, one that the Kemet of 6 months ago wouldn't even dare to dream of. Jabari and I lived in our luxury condo with absolute security. I brought my parents from our hometown to live with us. At first, they were in shock, thinking I was involved in illicit business. I had to explain it very carefully. I didn't tell the truth about the lottery. I only said that I had used my last savings. I lied, saying it was the money my mother had given me as a dowry, to invest with a friend. Seeing my secret business prosper, my parents believed me. They stayed home taking care of Jabari, taking him to and picking him up from an international daycare. Seeing my son happy and healthy, speaking English fluently, and my parents healthy, filled my heart with warmth. I was no longer the neglectful country bumpkin Kemet. I started taking care of myself. I practiced yoga, went to the spa, read books, studied finance and investments. I didn't want my 36 million to sit still. I wanted them to grow, to become the strongest shield for my life and my son's. But a part of my mind never rested, the revenge plan. Just as I predicted, Malik was a phoenix. With the opportunity, he spectacularly rose from the ashes. With the $500,000, he worked like a machine. He paid all the debts, rebuilt the workshop, and immediately flew to Japan. With his talent, technical knowledge, and determination, he convinced the Japanese partners and signed an exclusive distribution contract for their latest line of technological products. Phoenix LLC was born without noise, but it was like a sharp knife plunging directly into Solani's company's weak point. Every week, Malik sent me reports. I read them as if they were an exciting revenge novel. First week, Phoenix starts its activity. Zolani hears the news and laughs with his subordinates. That broke Malik still hasn't learned his lesson. He managed to borrow a few bucks and wants to get back into business. Let's see how many days he lasts. First month, Phoenix launches its first product. Superior quality, modern design, price slightly above Zolani's product. Clients start to notice. Zolani remains calm, thinking it's just a low-price tactic to enter the market. Third month, Malik, using his old contacts and technical reputation, wins his first major contract. The client was one of Zolani's main ones. Zolani starts to get irritated, calls the client, insults him, threatens him, but in vain. The client tells him directly, Malik's product is better, the warranty is faster, and the service is excellent. Why would I buy yours? Fifth month, the real storm. Phoenix launches a trade-in program. Clients can turn in their old products, mainly Zolani's, in exchange for a discount on the purchase of Phoenix's new products. It was a fatal blow. Zolani's biggest clients, his main distributors, turned their backs on him en masse. They didn't want to be left with stocks of obsolete products. Orders were canceled in a cascade. Zolani's company began to falter. He didn't understand. He couldn't grasp how Malik, a man he had crushed, had so much money to play such an aggressive game. Little did he know that the $500,000 I gave him was just the beginning. If necessary, I was willing to invest another $500,000, $1 million. I didn't lack money. What I lacked was the satisfaction of revenge. Sixth month. Malik's report had only one line. Zolani has started borrowing money from loan sharks. He has run out of liquidity. I read that with immense pleasure. Why did he run out of money? Because the $2 million he diverted were invested in Cradle & Sons LLC. He bought real estate, luxury cars, and a house for his mistress. That money was frozen. It couldn't be withdrawn immediately. And his real company, which for years evaded taxes and presented loss reports, how could he ask the bank for a loan with those reports? He fell into his own trap. I knew Zahara had given birth to a son, but Zolani didn't have the presence of mind to celebrate. He came home and broke things. He insulted Zahara, calling her bad luck, saying she had cursed him with that pregnancy. Zahara didn't hold back. You promised me this and that, and now you're a failure. Their love nest turned into hell. The fall was fast and brutal. When Zolani couldn't pay the Chinese suppliers, they cut off the supply. When he couldn't pay salaries, the employees left. When he couldn't pay the interest to the loan sharks, they went to his company to break everything and foreclose on what they could. Zolani's company, after 6 months of glory next to his mistress, officially declared bankruptcy. He lost everything. The day I heard the news, I opened a bottle of sparkling cider. I stood on the balcony looking at the Atlanta night. Zolani, this has only been the appetizer. Zolani's downfall was a news item of great impact. A young, rising director who suddenly went bankrupt in a few months. Rumors spread. Some said he got into gambling, others that he was a victim of a competitor. That competitor was Malik's Phoenix LLC. Only Malik and I knew who the true competitor was. Zolani disappeared. He didn't dare return to the luxury apartment, which was foreclosed by the bank, or to the company, now occupied by loan sharks. He, Zahara and their newborn son had to move to a rented room in a degraded neighborhood on the outskirts of Atlanta. I thought he would sink forever, but I was wrong. I underestimated his audacity. He found me. He found me in a way I could never have imagined, through my father. My father, after coming to Atlanta and seeing his rich daughter, even without knowing the source of the money, felt very proud. He used to go to the neighborhood barbershop to show off to his friends. "My Kemet is a go-getter. She's a boss now. She lives in a luxury home. She drives a high-end car. That ex-husband of hers was blind." One of those friends was an acquaintance of a distant relative of Solani's. The news reached his ears. Kemet, the ex-wife, lives in a luxury home. She drives a high-end car. She's a boss. He became furious. He didn't believe that a stupid woman he had tricked and left with nothing could get rich so quickly. He started investigating, spied at the barbershop where my father went, and eventually discovered my address, the high-rise condo complex. One afternoon, I was returning from daycare with Jabari. The elevator opened in the lobby, and I froze. Zolani was there. He no longer had the elegant air of before. He was thin, unshaven, wearing dirty clothes, and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked at me and the luxurious condo behind me. "Kemet, you," he stammered, pointing at me. I took a deep breath. I had prepared for this moment. Calmly, I picked up Jabari in my arms, protecting him. "What are you doing here?" "You," he shouted. "Where did you get this money? You fooled me. You had money and hid it." I smiled. "Having or not having money, what does that matter to you? Have you forgotten? We're divorced. You were the one who abandoned us." Zolani seemed to wake up. He realized that shouting was useless. He changed tactics. He fell to his knees. "Kemet, please!" He crawled toward me, trying to grab my legs. I backed away, hugging Jabari tightly. He started crying, his face covered in tears and snot. "I know I made a mistake, Kemet. Forgive me. The mistake was all Zahara's fault. She was the one who seduced me, who bewitched me. She's the bad luck in my life. I've already kicked her out. I've kicked out her and her son." My God, he kicked out Zahara and his own newborn son. What a cruel man. "Come back to me, Kemet. Let's start over for Jabari. Our son needs a father. You're so rich. Help me. I'm broke. I'm full of debt. Give me a chance. I swear I'll love you and our son. I'll be your slave." He knelt and hit his head on the floor. Right there in the condo lobby, the security guards started paying attention. I looked at the man who was once my husband, the father of my son. My heart was empty of any feeling except disgust. "Solani," I said in an icy voice, "do you remember the day in court? You signed the agreement. You declared with all certainty that you would not pay alimony. You abandoned your son without a shred of remorse. Now that you're broke, you come back wanting a son and a wife?" "I was blind because of her at the time," he defended himself. "What I have today has nothing to do with you. This money is mine. You want to know where it came from?" I decided to tell him. The truth would kill him. "I won the lottery," I said clearly. "I won the Mega Millions, $50 million, the very same day I went to your company and heard you in bed." Zolani raised his head abruptly. His face went from pale to white and then purple. He stood with his mouth open. He understood everything. He understood what he had thrown away. You, he hissed like a wounded animal. "Yes," I smiled sideways. "You threw away $50 million. Well, $25 million that would have been yours. But don't worry, I used the money very well. Phoenix LLC, Malik's company, was financed by me. $500,000. Surprised? You're the one who—" He went mad and tried to lunge at me. "Security!" I shouted. 2 burly security guards ran over and grabbed Zolani, dragging him outside. "From now on, this man is prohibited from entering this building." Zolani was dragged away, shouting and insulting. "You wretched woman, you fooled me! You set a trap for me. I'm going to sue you. The money was won during the marriage. You have to give me half. Give me back my money." I calmly turned my back and entered the elevator with my son. Just as I predicted, his greed would never die. He was going to sue me, Great. I was waiting for that too. The courtroom would be his final stage. As expected, a week later, I received a court summons. Zolani was suing me, demanding the division of assets. The allegation: I had won the lottery during the marriage but deliberately concealed it, deceiving him into divorcing and keeping all the marital assets. He demanded half, $25 million. The case became a scandal. Zolani, with his shamelessness, spread the news to the press. He invented a tragic story. He, the victim of a manipulative woman who won the lottery and allied with a competitor to destroy him. From a successful businessman, he became a pitiful victim. The press, the curious crowd, started pointing fingers at me. The woman who won $50 million and destroyed her husband. The ungrateful woman who got rich and abandoned her family. My parents were worried. The few friends I had left called me. Only I was calm. Don't worry. I haven't done anything wrong. Justice will be on my side. I didn't need the best lawyer, just a competent one, because in this game, evidence was king. On the day of the trial, reporters packed the courthouse entrance. Zolani arrived by taxi, deliberately wearing old, ripped clothes with a pitiful air. He cried for the cameras. I only hope the court will do me justice and return a father to my son. I stepped out of my luxury car, wearing an elegant white suit. I didn't say a word and walked into the courtroom with serenity. In the hearing, Zolani's lawyer was aggressive. He presented the lottery ticket as evidence. He had investigated the date of the prize and the date of our divorce, weeks apart. He argued that the prize money was marital property acquired during the marriage. The defendant intentionally concealed it, acting in bad faith to trick my client and lead him to divorce. This is a clear act of asset concealment. All eyes in the room turned to me. The judge struck the gavel. Does the defendant have anything to say in her defense? I stood up. I didn't look at Zolani. I looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, the accusation says I concealed assets. I find that ridiculous. I signaled to my lawyer. Your Honor, I ask permission to present my evidence. It is true that I won the lottery, but I concealed it because I discovered a shocking truth. The person who was concealing assets was not me. I pointed directly at Zolani. It was him, Zolani. The entire room murmured. Zolani startled. Does the defendant have evidence? The judge asked. I do, Your Honor. I ask permission to present it. The USB drive with the goldmine file was connected. The large screen in the courtroom lit up. All of Zolani's company's real accounting appeared. The contracts, the income, the expenses, and the money flow to the shell company, Cradle & Sons LLC. Your Honor, I said in a firm voice, this is the real accounting of Mr. Zolani's company. While he told me the company was on the verge of bankruptcy with a $50,000 debt, the truth is he had a net profit of over $2 million. That money was transferred to Cradle & Sons, a family company in his father's name. Is this not asset concealment before divorce, Your Honor? Zolani's lawyer jumped up. I object! This evidence was obtained illegally. I smiled coldly. Illegally? Or was it his head accountant, a person with a shred of conscience, who provided it to me? I lied to protect Mrs. Eleanor. Zolani's face turned white as a sheet. He was trembling, but I wasn't finished yet. Your Honor, he claims I concealed assets. Then I ask, what was the plan to create a fake $50,000 debt to force me into a divorce with nothing? I pressed an audio file. That country bumpkin with a $50,000 debt leaves with nothing. The moans, the victorious laughter of Zolani and Zahara echoed through the courtroom. It was the recording I had made at his office door. Zolani collapsed. He sat in the chair, defeated. He knew he had lost. The judge struck the gavel, his face serious. Does the plaintiff have anything else to say? Zolani couldn't utter a word. Your Honor, I delivered the final blow. Mr. Zolani's asset concealment and deception are clear. It is certain that the court will dismiss his petition, but I have something else. I looked at Zolani one last time. all the evidence of his company's tax evasion, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars over 5 years. I held up a copy of the USB drive. Has already been sent in full to the IRS and the FBI's Economic Crimes Unit. "What?" Zolani screamed. At that moment, the courtroom door opened. 2 National Police inspectors walked in. "We are from the Economic Crimes Unit. We ask Mr. Zolani to accompany us to give a statement regarding a qualified tax fraud offense." Handcuffs clicked onto Zolani's wrists, right there, in front of the press, in front of me. He was no longer shouting. He just looked at me with a gaze of hatred and despair. I turned my back and walked out. In this game of chess, I had won. After that trial, Zolani's life came to an end. His case was front-page news. He was no longer the businessman betrayed by his wife. He was the baron of tax fraud, the man who deceived his wife and son. His image, being handcuffed, his face disfigured, was broadcast everywhere. He was sentenced to a long prison term for tax fraud and document forgery. A year later, I decided to visit him in prison for the first and last time, not for forgiveness, but to close the chapter. "Hello, Zolani." He looked at me through the glass, his eyes vacant. "Did you come here to laugh at me?" "No," I shook my head. "I came to tell you why you lost. You didn't lose because of me. You lost because of your own greed, your own cruelty. And you lost because Phoenix, the company that destroyed you, was founded by me. I was the one who gave Malik $500,000 to start. I am the owner. I used my money to destroy your career." He dropped the phone. His spirit died in that moment. The truth was crueler than the sentence. I turned around and left. Walking out the prison gates, the sun was shining. I took a deep breath of freedom. My life was beginning. Today, Jabari is 5 years old. He is an intelligent and happy child. Phoenix LLC, under Malik's leadership, has become a successful business group. I have become a respected investor. I haven't remarried. I have my son, my parents. I created a foundation that helps single mothers, victims of emotional abuse, just like I was one day. One weekend afternoon, I took Jabari to fly a kite in the park. The wind was blowing and the kite flew high. Jabari laughed and ran across the grass. My parents, sitting on a bench, smiled. I looked at my son, my parents, the blue sky. My heart was at peace. Money has power, yes, but it only has true meaning when it helps us find justice and bring happiness to those we love. The nightmare was over. Now my life was one of wealth, freedom, and happiness. The happy ending that I conquered myself. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.